Welcome back, folks, to our third night of Vela y Voto. We welcome you as we're a week away from our voting day, and we're 3 weeks into our dialogues from our relatives throughout Turtle Island.
Welcome back, folks, to our third night of
sharing their
Vela.
insights
We welcome you
to what's happening now in our nation, in our world. It's been a time of a lot of chaos, a lot of hurt, but also a lot of mobilizing towards movements towards justice. We are talking and speaking from Las Maestras Center for Chicana Indigenous Thought, Art, and Social Practice here in UC Santa Barbara in Chumash territory here in Southern California. My name is John Heidel Valencia, and I am a graduate student and community liaison here at Las Maestras Center, where I work with Celia Herrera Rodriguez, who has been on our show for the past few weeks. And I'm also accompanied here by Alondra Bedoy, who's an undergraduate student who helps out at our center as well. And I also want to acknowledge Mariela Aguilar, who is our person who has helped set up all these sessions online for the past few weeks as well. So Las Maestras Center, we have put on this gathering because as we bear witness to so much disorder and chaos in our world, political divisions, as well as a lot of pain in this world, especially with genocides that we see in Palestine and Sudan and the Congo and other places in our world, and a lot of the silencing that we've experienced for folks not wanting to talk about it or afraid to talk about it. That amongst so many other things that we have witnessed in the past few years, in the past few months. So we gathered relatives to talk about what's at stake in our community in these moments, to share any insights, any wisdoms, any medicine that they have to share with us during this time, to bring clarity, to bring truth, and to share messages of love and empowerment and connection. So here we are at UC Santa Barbara, which is located on unceded Chumash land.
Oh.
And we want to acknowledge the peoples of this place, their ancestors, the guardians that protect these waters and these lands, the struggle for sovereignty and self-determination. And also all our relatives and ancestors, all of you who are on this call, thank you for joining us. I want to ask you to also give a moment to acknowledge where you're standing, where you're sitting, and all the ancestors that are with you, who walk with you, who brought you to this place. Thank you for joining us and for being part of this dialogue. So we brought you all here to this dialogue because of our maestra here, Celia Herrera Rodriguez, who had this call and this desire to dialogue, to talk, and to inspire movement through ceremony. So we started off with the fire lit by relatives in Nova Scotia in the far east of Turtle Island, who started their first fires, and we moved on to folks in Michigan. Moving on to last week, we had relatives from Arizona, from Fort Mountain Apache Reservation, who shared about their work doing civic engagement and community organizing in their tribal communities in Arizona. And now we want to give thanks to our relatives in South Dakota who are representing the Warriors Lodge, who agreed graciously to join us to share their insights, their knowledges, and to share what's at stake in their communities. So without further ado, I want to thank you all for joining us here. And I want to pass it on to you all to share your words and to introduce yourselves.
Good evening, Pastor John Oldhorse in Machapelo, Nacha Oglala Lakota, Waungwelo, my relatives. I greet you all from the lands of the Lakota people, the warmest of handshakes from my heart. My name is Pastor Jonathan. I'm the headman of the Warriors Lodge and Woyaton and Wangbiskal Kola Kiche. And it's an honor to be with you to share a little bit of Woksape. But first off, I'm going to introduce you to my sister.
I'm Takiapi. Greetings, my relatives, Buju. We were hoping to have a fire lit for you tonight out on this great land. Unchimaka had a different image in mind and began raining, which we're so grateful for, and snowing and a little chilly. So my name is Annie, and I am the support. I am the Tui, the auntie, and also known as Yaku-san, as that traditional warrior here as well. Buju.
Oh. Le Magaju Kile, the rain is very, very sacred. Water, water is life. But when we think about these things of this prayer, of all those daku shicha, those daku techi, those bad things, those hard things, that hatred, those anxieties, that's when I look upon that rain, that magaju that washes us away, makes us clean, gets rid of those things that we shouldn't be carrying. We have to rely on that wocheke, on that prayer, and those prayers that we have for our people, for our communities, for this world. Those are very, very important. For some peoples, those prayers is all that they have to get through their lives. They're always being prayed upon, hurt, stepped on. Some of us in those communities, we've lost our ability to know the Creator. We've lost the ability to love. And that's why all these hard words and hard hearts are out there. But before we move on, we ask this prayer for this good rain, but to remember while we're here and to take a couple deep breaths and remember all those good women and men that stood that line. So I'll share two very important songs to the movement, in honor of the brothers from California, that La Movida, that La Raza, remembering those things, why we do what we do. And as a strong advocate and member of the American Indian movement, we'll share that song and the song of Leonard Peltier, the longest held political prisoner in this country, that the only thing he's guilty of was loving his people and defending his people, just like we all are in our context. So we'll share these two songs with you. The first one will be the Leonard Peltier, and then the AIM song. So in your own ways, use that time to prayer, send those words out, because sometimes our Tumkashala tells us that there are prayers and things that are so heavy that we have to rely on our Holy Spirit, that sacred breath, to get those words out, to get those vibrations. That's why some of these songs, when they have no words, are so powerful. So here are those songs, my relatives. Way hi hey ha hey hi hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ha ya ho hey ho hey ho hey 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 ha hey wana wo check yapo ho tungashala wa kantanka ikhtaya tukile anako tayo nita tangleshka wakam oyate kikaga le nita unspe nita woksape oyate wichak upo lecha le makasi tomne dako techia daku eok shichaki daku shichaki oyate kilila ota daku techia gluhamani ho tungashala ya chuktalo le wichoni kim lilo techia tuka oyate kile chantet inza kitchen pinkte o kyapo shell oyate nimpinkte shell wakanja nimpinkte. Holy Grandfather, look down upon us and hear our prayer as we form this sacred circle all over Turtle Island in this world, through this way of technology, that we come in prayer for the peoples of this world, for that good peace, for that good road, to get back on track. Help us to protect our minds and our spirits from that iktomi, that trickster that constantly tries to get into our minds, into our hearts, and tries to destroy our people and our children. Help us to remember those teachings and those instructions from Lekshi John Trudell that reminds us to protect our spirits at all times, because we are living in a place where our spirits can get eaten. Help us and heal us and give us life. Thank you, my relatives, for those times to get into prayer. Our words and our actions can really cause havoc, or they can bring good medicines. When we walk with this chanupa, when we walk with the Vyaka, we can't have hatred in our hearts. Even though as humans, we have those things, we have to do our best every day to walk kindly, to walk with wowachwala, humility. We walk strong with Tunkashala, when we walk strong in our cultural ways. Those things, those hard things, they won't be so hard with us. But somehow along the way, with all these heavinesses, this dark cold, these rains, whatever it is, that heaviness that takes our spirit and wears us down. All those bad words and bad vibrations, it makes us all sick when we walk with love. So we always have to do our best to wipe down with that sage, say our prayers. In our language, the word for prayer is wochekya, and that root word is chea. In our language, it means to cry. That's the seriousness of our prayers, that we should be willing to die for those prayers, for our relatives and for our people and our way of life. We always ask for Tunkashala's wisdom of how to conduct ourselves. Here's a reminder of how we're supposed to seek that woksape, Tunkashala's wisdom. For where there is jealousy and selfish ways, you will also find confusion and all kinds of evil at work. But the wisdom that comes from the one above us is first of all pure, then peace-loving, gentle, full of mercy, and open to another's way of seeing and thinking. People with this kind of wisdom are like trees filled with good fruit. They have open hearts with nothing to hide. This wisdom will bring about a harvest of doing what is right because they are the peacemakers, planting seeds of peace. Walking with that peace is such a hard thing, my relatives, but it's what we've been called to do as people of Turtle Island, as people of prayer, whatever path that we walk, to always have compassion, to always have generosity, to always have humility and truthfulness. When we walk in those other ways, things happen. We allow that Iktomi, that trickster, to start throwing little arrows, fiery darts, like he says, that get us to be nawizi, that get us to get angry and say ugly things to people. And this world, Tunkashla tells us, don't get caught up in that Washichu world. Don't get caught up in those things that have been brought upon us. There's all kinds of things out there that spiritually can destroy us and take our spirits, our children's spirits. So even during these times, for those of you that have those traditional names, those spiritual names, take those times in the evening to wipe down with sage, call your spirits back. With your children, do those same things. Sometimes these traumas, in our way of belief, those traumas can be so scary and devastating to our people that your spirits will actually leave our bodies and become lost. And so that's why we call them back. But stay the course, my relatives. Hang in there, like Tunkashala says, and we'll all make it. Here's another bit of woke sape that I would like to share with you. This one tells us, let's see, all kinds of good things for him to talk about. Lose my spots here. So, the power of prayer. Are we suffering? Send up your prayers. Are your hearts glad? Sing traditional songs of honor and praise. Are any among you sick? Call on the elders of the sacred families to pray over them and smudge them with that sweet-smelling smoke. In the name of our Tunkashala, when you send your voice to Tunkashala, trusting in him, he will heal the sick ones and restore them to health. He will forgive us and set us free from those things that we follow, and those bad hearts and those things that go off our path. So with these things, my relatives, I send my prayers to you all over the world, that you find that Wola Kota, for the relatives, the Chaz Muska across the water, in Gaza, Lebanon, all those places where people of power abuse those that don't have any power, but have that power of Wola Kota. As one of our wisest of spiritual men from the past, Blackout, in his vision, his quote at the battlegrounds of the Little Bighorn, he reminds us, remember the power that is in peace. Ho, hechetu elo, belihichapo, take courage, my relatives. Lakota pilila otechike. It's hard to walk that Indian way of life. It's hard to walk that red road. But when we suffer for the people and when we endure, we all know it's one of the most beautiful ways to live. Take courage, my relatives, the Lakota people. We remember you all, and we hope that you remember us during these times for all the struggles in your communities. Stand tall for the children. Stand tall. Hokahe, hokahe, mitakuye, oyasu. And with that, I shall pass it to Annie.
Thank you, my brother John. I think we were talking earlier today, he and I were about this coming, and I was sharing a story of having left these lands when I was in my young 20s and out to Los Angeles to witness our, well, then was just a representative out there in the state, Maxine Waters, and the greatness that Tui showed us all back in those days in the 80s, right? And then into the 90s, and watching our brothers and sisters from the Black community really find their voices and find that peace and say, you know, our prayers are heard. And it always begins with a prayer. And then going over to Phoenix in the land of the people over there for the next 20 years and watching my Latino brothers and sisters and watching that Chicano movement take place over there and watching Viva la Raza and witnessing Si Se Puede, witnessing the understanding of yes we can and having that time with Unchi Dolores Huerta. Those lessons that it taught me in coming back here was that those prayers are so deep within us. And no matter what is in front of us, once we find that way to stand in our feet, to stay in our place and to own that space that we're in, nobody can knock us down no matter who they are, because it's that spirit that's inside of us. And, you know, they can beat us and they can torture us. They can do a lot of things to that physical being, but that spirit of ours, as we stand strong together as brothers and sisters, as relatives, knowing that we're relatives.
Oh.
And relatives with the trees and that beautiful rain that comes tonight and that cold that comes over us and refreshes everything, right? That snow that blankets and just refreshes Unchi Maka. We're reminded that constantly our souls, our spirits are renewed amongst one another. And out here in our tradition, every morning we gather and we light the sage and we Walzilia. We offer those prayers up in that sacred way, remembering that all things come from that connection that we make, and all those fears only create disconnection. So the more that we can pay attention to connecting, the less fears that we have. And being back home here, we're always reminded that it's not easy.
Oh.
Life is difficult. And yet, in the midst of that challenge, we're surrounded by people we love. So we thank you all so very, very much. And in that tradition of mine, I say, you know, Om Shanti Shanti Om. Om Shanti Shanti Om. May peace be with you. And we're grateful for this opportunity to have been with you tonight. And this experience from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet and all within me brings us life.
Oh.
Well,
my relatives, in a closing thought, this is a Woksape from the spirit of the Tatanka, the buffalo, who we as Lakota people get a lot of our life lessons from. During these times of hardship, during these Daku Techi, the buffalo on her shirt, but during these times, the buffalo teaches us the virtue of Wowachitanka, that self perseverance and long suffering. The buffalo, when they're caught in those storms and those blizzards, they don't turn and run away. The Tatanka, they turn and face that storm and walk through those challenges, making sure that their footing is solid, making sure that they're plowing through those things, never giving up, never quitting, but always moving forward till they can get through that storm, and making sure that they're not going any faster than their slowest one. Mm-hmm. Because we all have to get through those things, those storms. So this last song, a prayer song, it says, Father, Holy Grandfather, Great Spirit, help me. I want to live. I want to live. Holy Grandfather, I come to you on the most humblest and sincerest of manners. because I want to live. I want to have life for my family. So as we remember our people and our struggles and these very, very sacred songs that we send to the universe, so they will all have that wichozani, that good health, that wozanya, spiritual health, waokia, that spiritual help, and that woanglaki, spiritual protection. Again, with these songs, wherever you pray in your heart language, use these songs to open up that spirit to get those prayers out there. Prayer is so powerful. One of our most important medicines is always to pray. Always, always, always pray sincerely. Oh, hey, my relatives, let's take a couple deep breaths and get into character as we send our voices to the universe, to Tunk Ashalam, for the lives of our relatives and our loved ones, even our enemies, those ones that talk all those hard things, that do bad things to people, that even them we have to pray for. We have to pray for everybody. And that's hard. That's why we need Tunk Ashalam to help us to guide our way through those things. Atewa kataka o makeayo he wani wachielo wani wachielo heyo he Atewa kataka o makiayo hey hoy Oshia che 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 lo hey Wane wachielo Wani wachielo heyo hey Atewa kataka o makiayo hey Atewa kataka o makiayo hey Wani wachielo Wani wachielo heyo hey Atewa kantaka o makiayo hey hoy Oshia che 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 lo hey Wani wachielo Wani wachielo heyo hey Atewa kantaka o makiayo hey oy ho mitakuye oyasin Plehichapo, my relatives. Plehichapo. I love you all.
Thank you all so much for that. Just a lot of emotions over here, a lot of feelings of beauty and gratitude for your beautiful shares. And I just wanted to reflect back a couple of things that I heard from you all, from Father John sharing the importance of walking with love, and the different ways that we can protect our spirits. And you invoked our ancestor John Trudell and his message to protect our spirits in a place that wants to eat our spirits. And I believe all the different practices and ceremonies and wisdoms that you shared with us are really important for us in this time that we just see so much, like you said, bad mouthing, a lot of confusion and intentional, there's just kind of like distortion that's taking place. And how do we really keep ourselves centered and clear and rooted in our communities and protecting our families and empowering us And Annie, thank you for your wisdom and your stories and reflecting back on your own experiences in different movements and calling back the different ways that you've witnessed, yes, we can. And I think that was really beautiful that you brought that back, um, of bringing that hope of how we move with that power that we've witnessed throughout all the generations of folks who have organized and moved and created beautiful things for our communities despite the hardships. And again, Father John bringing back, the teachings of the buffalo and the self-perseverance during times of suffering, right? Times of hardship. And I think what you mentioned about the storms and the rains, and I feel like that's what we're experiencing, in this world. And really, like, how do we have that strength? How do we have that power, that perseverance so that we can move forward? So I thank you all for those beautiful messages and those wisdoms and for making time to speak with us. And I wanted to offer to Celia if you had any thoughts or reflections or questions for our relatives.
Well, I wanted to say thank you. First of all, Annie, could we move the camera to center you just a little bit because we're just catching the edge of your glasses. There you are, there you are. I wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank you for the work that you're doing with the youth. I feel like, we more and more, it's so necessary to have somebody show up, somebody show up for them, somebody that there's somebody home. I've been thinking a lot about that because I think maybe what keeps coming back to me is that I keep hearing that this is a time in the earth where more people are outside of their homeland than ever. There's more people out, trying to have whole lives, whole generations are growing up in refugee camps. Whole generations are growing up without being able to step back into the land that has, that has their history, that has their blood, that they have a relationship to. And so on one hand, I keep saying for us as Chicanx, as Chicanos, as Chicanx people, Chicana people, that we have made a life on the road, that we've become very good, at making life in the road, on the road, and have a sense of spirit in that road, that I believe we've been there for many, many generations of people that join us, that get, for one reason or another, are pushed off their land. And I hope that, that we continue to be blessed, at being able to provide support, to provide heart. And so I want to thank you because I want to thank you for your response, Pastor John, in terms of your words, of your good words, reminding us of the values that are so important for us underneath all the politics, underneath all the things that we're constantly doing to survive. It's good to remember, what it means to be human beings and what are tasks that we were given. I think sometimes I tend to forget that. I get so caught up in the moment, so it's good to remember, that those teachings that we call home, those home teachings, that is the way that we've been told we're going to survive. I sometimes I get a little nervous when I think about the amount of social media and so much whirling around us. It's so distracting, and we get, we think that's the world, right? And so I say, I hope we can survive this period more than any. It seems like this time is so different in what we have to survive, because all of the ugliness of thought and practice, of all these generations are swirling around us and are being said and repeated and said and repeated, and we keep being hit by them. And I was remembering one of the elders many years ago when I was a young person, was saying to me, when things are bad and chaos is coming, and these are the words of of one of the elders here in California who was telling us, talking about the times to come and all the chaos and everything that was coming at us. And this was before so many of the diseases and so many, of everything we experienced in the last 40 years. And she said, But you know, what you have to do is you have to go home and take care of your family. She goes, and duck. You have to duck, you know. Yeah, and don't be poking your heads out to check it out because you know you're going to get hit. And so I really wanted to appreciate your words for that. But I also wanted to remember that you also have the energy of working with those youth and the buffalo. I think that's really so important, the work that you're doing. And I don't know if you want to say anything more about it, but I was wanting to, you know, to have you say a little bit about that work.
So the sacred storm and our relationship with the Tatanka and the young people, it goes back even to kind of our creation story of how the Lakota and the buffalo will always be interconnected with each other. Like our hearts beat the same. And when the buffalo are sick, the Lakota are sick. When the Lakota are dying, the buffalo are dying. And we're both called to rely on each other because when the people were tricked and they came up out of the hole and came into this world, they didn't know how to feed themselves. They didn't have no clothes. They didn't know how to do anything. And the buffalo, they were two-legged at the time. And the Tungashala, back then his name was Shkan. You know, it was just mysterious energy. But he said, your relatives, they're having a hard time. And these things that I'm going to ask upon you are going to be very, very hard because it's going to cost you your life. That the people that are going to go up there, your people are starving and they're dying. You that have that heart, that have been called upon to go up there, if you so choose, you have to give your life for them so that they'll have life. But you'll always have that sacred relationship. They will honor you and they will respect you. And so when they came up out of there, that's when they transformed into those four-legged buffalo. And all the teachings from the coming of our Chanupa came from the buffalo. And when he said they will provide for us, they provided everything in that spiritual manner: our food, our way of thinking, our lodging, our clothes. And so in order to repay that back, we had to be stewards of the Chisapa and all those lands to make sure that all their fruits and all their other Wamakashka allies would have a safe place to be and to reproduce. And that original treaty was between animals and humans with the buffalo. And during that time of those dark days back in the 1800s, they killed it off. So that was our food source. And during that time, the introduction of all those reservation food sources and this new education, getting away from that buffalo meat, has really destroyed our bodies because we're still geared to eating that meat. And when our prayer came to be buffalo people, it was this dream of teaching our children a craft where they can survive in this world, because as our brother Chris White Eagle likes to say, as long as people are hungry, there's going to be a need for butchers. There's going to be a need for those things. But Woonspe, that knowledge and that wisdom is what our ancestors wanted. When Red Cloud and all them touched the pen in 1868 to end that war, the Powder River War, in exchange for almost half of our land base, he asked for education so that we would be able to survive in this world as Indian people. Learn how to manage buffalo herds. Learn how to teach these boys to manage grasses and care for all those buffaloes from the time that they shoot them to the time that they dress them and put them in the package to send them to Pine Ridge or other reservations so that they can feed the native people. It's teaching them through the buffalo, it's teaching the young people that Wola Kota again, generosity, feeding the people, being responsible, standing tall. You know, they're working long hours in order to better themselves and to learn these things so they can go back to the communities where we've kind of removed them from for a while so they can hone their minds. this whole thing has been about re-educating our minds to be Lakota people again, and using culture to bring it back. Our songs, the way that we pray to the buffalo, even because it's natural harvesting, they're learning the proper prayers and the proper songs that you do. Because I'm not sure if you're familiar with how buffaloes are when you're in the hunting context, but when they're herded up out in the natural environment, they herd together and they know hunters are out there. But like I said, there's been Tatanka in those herds that have been picked for those things. And you can tell the ones that have been picked because when we're praying and singing this song, you start to see them looking around at each other, hoping that somebody else has the heart to step forward before I make this choice. But there's always like 3 or 4 of them looking. And then all of a sudden, one just and steps forward and kind of puts his head down. And he's far enough away that when they take that shot and pray and take his life for the people, it doesn't scare the buffalo away. It doesn't panic them where they could start attacking the hunters or follow those trucks all the way back. And so when that's done, then they go to wipe it down with the sage and sing those songs, Eat That Heart, give those boys something that resembles them of their past and to connect them to that warrior kind of mentality. And in these times that we've been doing that, I wish people could see the changes in them from being gangsters and bad-hearted boys that just didn't know any better to being good men that people actually can depend on and say, I think, we're going to survive. We're going to make it. And so all those things of educating our young people, getting them those good knowledges to survive in places like California, away from South Dakota and this very, very racist and oppressive place, but it's giving them a fighting chance. And it's helping them to love themselves again. Just even little prayer songs, little bits of culture. You have no idea that medicine of when we gifted those boys just a little impact for their work, their eagle feathers, all these things that they're doing. They're chanupas, they're sun dancers now. They're still chlete, they're all young boys. We have to protect our boys until they get to be the age of 25. That's psychology, white man psychology says that 25, our minds as boys, as men, the wiring finally is set and we can kind of mellow our way out. But through all these years that I've been doing this work, 18, 21, and then from 21 to 25, you just hope our boys survive till they can make it to there. But the ones that we've seen that have hit 25, they have a better chance than most of making it to be older people like us, and that's the importance of what we're doing, is giving these boys and girls a chance to survive where they have hope. Our children, before we started this, when you'd ask them about things, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I don't know. I don't even know if I'll be alive tomorrow. I don't know where I'm going to be alive a year from now. And when we would have all of our Halloween parties and all these good things, I would always be sad watching those films, wondering who's not going to be here in 5 years? Who are we going to lose? And we went through so many deaths during COVID. Our church, our ministry, we were the only ones that were actually doing all these services for 3 reservations and Rapid City, on top of all the suicides of teens that I went through. And I'm just getting over that trauma of 14, 15-year-old kids putting belts around their neck because they had no hope in the future. They had no safe place to go to. And sometimes we're our own worst enemy. And we don't want to ever remove our children from our families. But for sometimes this lost generation, the grandchildren of the boarding school survivors, we got to do more to protect them, because they like I said, we're in a place where their spirits get eaten. And that one walks around like a lion that will rip them to shreds if they're caught slipping. The drugs, the gangs, everything that is out there is an enemy to our young children because of that boarding school and the lack of any sort of love and self-respect. And so this generation, my son's age, people that are in their 18, 21, those are the ones, if we aren't very careful, that's we're going to lose this generation. This is the seventh generation where we survive or we go the life of a white man. That's how serious this prayer is, that it has to succeed, that we can't play around with it because these young children minds and lives are at risk. And I don't think we want to have another generation of what we have all experienced going through those things. You know, we fought too hard to go down. Our ancestors gave up too much for us to cease to exist as indigenous people, to cease to exist with that La Raza, with that La Choha. You know, that's our prayer, my sister. It's very, very sacred to us.
Thank you.
That's the buffalo for us. And right now, it's just a shameless plug, but I would love to get an address for you. Right now, the boys are doing cattle, but we're rotating back into processing buffalo. So if we can get an address for you, we will send you some papa, which is the dried beef jerky, if you will.
Yeah.
And this isn't your Slim Jim beef jerky either. This real papa, real buffalo meat, and it like melts in your mouth. It's the best tasting things ever. But if you're kind of from the big city and we've been immersed in different kinds of cultures, our favorite snack stick in Buffalo snack stick in this area is actually dill pickle. Buffalo sticks.
We call them Willy Dillies.
And I have no idea why that dill pickle is the thing, but I was like, no, I'm not into that. But we would love to share that with you, those a gift of the buffalo from us to you.
Most definitely. Thank you. Thank you, especially since, there's such a strong prayer in it. This is, I mean, it's very moving, and it's almost like I have to pause for a moment and ask myself, how do we respond? How do we respond to this prayer that you have? And I feel that, somehow maybe the attempt that we had here at Maestra Center, which is, really to be able to give voice, to be able to at least respond in some way to what's happening around us and give voice to those that we know, because we visit and we talk, we get these conversations happen in our homes, in our kitchens, in our back porches. When we come together in ceremony, I hear the words that matter, right? That go to your heart. And so, at this point, sometimes it leaves me speechless. I have to go home and I have to let it sink in, so I know, what the response is. It comes from the heart. And especially in this time, because there's so many, I guess, as you were saying, you were talking about the ego and talking about how everybody, wants to be the one, right? The one. But I think what matters is that we are together. And I always say the best is when we all think together, when we all come together and have one heart, and we are able to, even if we don't agree with each other, even if we have different perspectives and visions, that if we can last in a room talking together, I think we leave that room knowing more. Yeah. So I'm very grateful for that, but I'm especially grateful for the work that you do with those young people. And you were talking about, the young men. So it made me curious about the young women. Are young women also involved in this project that you all have?
Not the Buffalo Project, but we do have the Chante Wash Day. Omeniche, the Good-Hearted Woman Society, which teaches those cultural things of the Lakota Wiam, because you know, we're still very much, each gender had their own responsibilities in things, but we have a program that's empowering our younger women. Our youth mentor, Kaylee White Eagle, how old is she now? 18, 19? But when she's a natural leader. And when we first had our homeless shelter, we put together a homeless shelter in 3 days' time. And it's the first run American Indian shelter in Rapid City. But all of our young leaders, and I will talk about Kaylee, she was 15 years old and was case managing and helping to run a shelter with her natural leadership abilities as a junior ROTC. Yeah, and her heart. And so she's spoken at the UN. She's the past American Indian movement Powell Princess, and was one of our first to ever speak at the UN, and met with Vice President Harris in Atlanta or Chicago, one place like that. But we are geared with her and her program because of her love for the Oyate and her mother, Tara, who is the matriarch of Wambliska. All those teachings, the Wola Kota teachings, come from Tara's heart. And we have elders, but she is the one she's the house mom. You know, even Pastor John has to toe that line with her. But her daughter, and the way that we're bringing them up, is to use that womanly woksape, the woman's wisdom, because the woman is the knowledge keeper. They're the ones, our first language as men, we hear it from our mothers because we aren't around grown men until we're about 12 years old. It's always the mother that taught us those sacred things. It was a woman that brought our prayer life to us, but they saw me, the white buffalo calf woman. And so she is teaching empowerment. She's helping develop some leadership for these young women where they can be in these businesses, where they can be at the college level, and being a good example of how to walk wola kota, how to walk in a good manner with a good-hearted woman society in that white world.
We realized in the Buffalo plant that we made a few attempts to have young women in there because some indicated a desire. It was too much of a distraction. There was just, it goes back to those honoring those traditional roles really helps in allowing those young men the space to heal and not to act out in a way that is counterproductive for them. That there's so much that they have to learn just to show up on time and to fulfill their commitments within the plant itself. To have other distractions, female distractions in there, was just a little too much for them. But I have young women here in the office with me, so I run the office end of it. And we remind all of us when we all come together, we say this is so much more than a job. It's not a job. It's a way of life. I'm reminded of how, our young people come up here to Rapid City from the res, and from 9 reservations around us and in different communities, and they have this expectation that they're going to be able to come up here and get a job and get an apartment and do all that. And they have no idea of how to get an apartment and how to pay their utilities and all of that, right? And so they fall, that Ikdome gets hold of them, right? And then just so many challenges transpire from there.
And so the Wombly Ska Center, our teen center, that's where our women, the women's role of the organization is there. That's even more of a vital piece of this puzzle of our ecosystem than having them here down at the Buffalo plant.
Yeah.
Because they're up there, again, our young people, they're managing the kitchen, they're cooking, for meals for 75 people every day, just for the children. And in the summer, it's even more. They're responsible for tutoring when the kids get out of school. It's mandatory that they got schoolwork. They get their snack, they go sit down with those young women and get their schoolwork done. And then they get into some culture, whether she did some work with learning traditional foods like the wasna, the choke cherry and the meat, the papa, how to do ribbon skirts, how to, talking about the different ceremonies and protocols that go with being a Lakota Wiyo. And so even with them, empowering them and kind of teaching them to get away, and also to get away from some of these behaviors that aren't good for anybody. We're the toxic behaviors of living in those kind of neighborhoods and relationships where there's drugs and alcohol and all those things from the boarding school era again. Getting them away from there and getting them to learn have respect, have some love for themselves. Same with the boys, your body's secret. Don't be doing crazy things and disrespecting yourself. And they're all standing taller. They're all doing good things and uplifting other young girls where she's got 15 or so young people that she's mentoring and still bringing people. She's 19 and a case manager of our organization, not just with children, but she also helps manage our food bank. We're the first Indian-run food bank in Rapid City. And I just cannot say enough about what Tara does with the women. And I wish they could tell their story. I hate talking on women's business, so please forgive me, Tony. I'm not trying to take anybody's space, but I just happen to be the one that has to talk today. But I would love for you to meet our women and hear their stories from their hearts, other than me, except just saying I'm very proud of each and every one of them for what they're doing. And again, it gives me a good night's sleep to know that our people are going to survive, that our children, they're going to be the ones that are going to take us and care for us and fix a lot more of these things. Because I really do believe we keep doing what we're doing and healing these children, in 2 more generations, it'll fix itself right out.
I think about the prayer that Chewy, Charlene put down so many years ago in the Inipi with all of us back in Phoenix. And those prayers that we offered every Tuesday over and over and over. And so being back home and witnessing those prayers coming to fruition, the strength of that coming about, that those same words that she spoke, those words that she spoke, that I heard as a kid growing up and then heard again out in LA and heard again in Phoenix, and then came back and heard again out of my brother and out of my younger brother, Chris, and out of Tara, right? And us being able to exchange those different experiences and heartfelt dreams and aspirations that we have, right? Yeah. And the full circle of then sharing this with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we invite you to come join us.
Thank you.
And share that you'll always have a space out here. We'll always have a meal to feed you with and a bed to allow you to sleep and be warm and feel welcomed out here. You're always invited out here. So someday please come and join us and we'll light a fire with you here and do a good meal.
Do you guys ever go up to those sunrise services at Alcatraz?
It's been a while, but yes.
Yeah.
We're supposedly this upcoming one, our Wamli Ska, we will be over there.
Oh, okay.
So if we're in the area, we'll definitely let you know, and we could come down south.
Thank you.
I find the funding.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make that prayer so it can happen,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Was there anything?
I just want to thank you all for your words. I'm just here like, wow.
With your prayers and talking about our ancestors and all that stuff, if you will allow one more song, And this one is a song for I call it an elder's song. And it says when it's translated into English, Grandma and Grandpa, I remember my grandparents. I remember the teachings that they taught me through their sacred lessons is how we're going to have life. Unshina tonk ashala wicha wik suye. I remember my grandparents. So all those good teachings that we remember that we need to pass to our grandchildren so that we have life. So here is a song for our elders and those good teachings that they continue to teach us and that we should do our best to pass on to those next 7 generations. Uchina toga shila wicha wiksuye hena wiksuye lo he Uchina toga shila wicha wiksuye hena wiksuye lo he Uchina toga shila wicha wiksuye heya dakuwa kancha wuspe makia pelo heya heya Uchina toga shila wicha wiksuye lo hoy Uchina toga shila wicha wiksuye hena wiksuye lo Uchina toga shila wicha wiksuye hena wiksuye lo hoy Uchina toga shila wicha wiksuye heya dakuwa kancha wuspe makia belo heya Uchina toga shila wicha wiksuye hoy Blessings, my relatives.
Thank you. Thank you for that song. Thank you for those prayers. Thank you for those good words. It was good. It's good to get to know you a little bit. Look forward to continuing that relationship.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
We will see you down the road for sure.
Right, for
For
sure.
For sure. I hope so. Blessings and with all those things, and we'll see you down the road again.
All right.
Doksha.
Duksha.
Thank you all so much.
Ow.